Okay, today we're going to go over how you can fix your Chapter 5 test. So let me go over it with you, then you can retake it. Which ratios, number one, which ratios would be used to show part to whole or a total in comparison mark all that apply? Well, the key, guys, is that it's part first and whole second. Part could be just the 2 dogs, part could be just the 3 cats. The whole is 5 because together we have 5. So first we have to have a 2 or a 3, and then second we have to have a 5 because it's part to whole. So we're looking for 2 to 5 or 3 to 5. This one says 3 to 5, this one says 2 to 5. Nothing else applies. It can't be the 5 first because it doesn't say whole first. It says part first. Be careful of what it says. Number 2, a cookie recipe calls for 4 cups of flour and 2 cups of sugar. What's the ratio of flour first, sugar second? In simplest form. Flour first was the 4 cups, right? Sugar was the 2 cups. If I want to simplify it, however, I can cut both of these in half and make it 2 to 1. So that was the answer, 2 to 1. Okay, next one, you had a calculator for this. If you punched in your calculator, you're finding the unit rate, by the way, to find out which one's a better buy. You type in 1.19 in your calculator. You hit the divided by key, divide it by 7 ounces, and then hit enter. And when you do that, you get 0.17 per ounce. Okay, the next one. You punch in your calculator, 1.26, you hit the divided by key, 9 ounces, and hit enter. And when you do that, you find out that this one is 14 cents an ounce. Okay, and we wrote in per ounce. So 14 cents is cheaper than 17 cents, so the 9-ounce box is the better buy. That's how you were supposed to do that one. Okay, number 4. A recipe that calls for 3 eggs makes 2 dozen cookies. 3 eggs, 2 dozen cookies. Which proportions could be used to solve for the number of eggs needed if you were to make more than 2 dozen cookies? In fact, it tells you're going to make 6 dozen cookies. Well, the key is here, when you set up a portion, the eggs need to be on the same thing, and the dozens need to be, like the eggs need to be on the top, and the dozens need to be on the bottom, or vice versa. The dozens need to be on the top, the eggs need to be on the bottom. You can't solve it unless you have the same units on the top and the bottom, okay? So this one goes dozen, dozen, so this one's correct. This one goes eggs and dozens. You can't compare it that way. That's not set up correctly. This one goes eggs and dozens on the both on the bottom. That doesn't go correctly. Dozen, dozen on the top, eggs on the bottom, so that's going to work. When you go to solve this, you say, hey, what times 2 equals 6? By multiplying by 3, right? So if I multiply the 3 eggs by 3, I find out that's going to make 9 dozen cookies there. So the answer to this one is we need 9 eggs. Sorry, not 9 dozen cookies. We need 9 eggs to make the 6 dozen cookies. Times by 3, that equals 9. Okay, number 5. Find the missing values in the ratio table. We say, hey, we're trying to find this one right here for the y. So look to the one above it. How do you get from 6 to 18? It's by timesing by 3. So you do the same thing down here. 2 times 3 is 6. Okay, if we're missing one right here, go to the one below it. How do I get from 2 to 22? Times by 11. So 6 times 11, is 66. So I multiplied this by 11, so I do the same thing at the top. 6 times 11, 66. Okay, number 6. Smith sells gallon buckets of ice cream, 2 for $5. How much will 5 buckets cost? Find the unit rate. If you have 2 for $5, 1 bucket costs half of that, right? So 1 you get for $2.50. Okay, so now that we know that 1 costs $2.50 and we want 5, we multiply that $2.50 by 5. 5 times 0, 0. 5 times 5, 25. 5 times 2 is 10, plus 2 more is 12. We find out if we want 5 gallons, it's going to cost us $12.50. That was the answer to that one. Flip it over. A car travels for 3 hours and covers a distance of 210 miles. Okay, hours miles. We said 3 hours. It's going to be 210 miles. Okay, how many hours? We don't know the hours. How many hours is it going to take him to travel 385 miles? Okay, we've set up our proportion. So we say, hey, what times 3, actually rather, what 210 divided by what equals 3? And that's 70. You have to divide by 70. So if we divide this by 70, we'll get the answer for the hours. Okay, so I go, running out of space here, you go 385 divided by 70. 70 goes into 385 5 times, and some of you stopped here, by the way. 5 times 70 is 350, but I need to subtract. I get 35, put my decimal point here, bring down a 0, and then 70 goes into 350 exactly 5 more times. Okay, so the correct answer is 5.5 hours, or 5.5 hours. Okay. Number 8. The table shows Jamal's earnings at his part-time job. Predict Jamal's earnings for 7 hours of work. So if we know he makes $9.60 for 2 hours, we need to find the unit rate. What does he make per hour? So I divide this in half. 2 into 960, right? 2 goes into 9 4 times, which is 8. I subtract, get a 1, bring down my 6. 2 goes into 16 8 times, which is 16. Bring down my 0. 2 goes into nothing. You could just stop there and make it $4.80 per hour. But he wants 7 hours. So I take that answer, 480, and I times it by 7. So I know how much he'll make in 7 hours. 7 times 0 is 0. 7 times 8 is 56. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 5 more is $33.60. That's the answer. So we solve this one the same way we did the ice cream. Find out what he makes for 1 hour, and then times it by the number of hours that we need. Okay, the next one. In a class, 60% of the students are girls. There are 18 girls in the class. How many boys are in the class? This we go part over whole equals percent over 100. Okay? So they gave us the percent, 60%, so I put that in. It's always over 100. If there's 18 girls in the class, that's not the whole class. That's just the girls, so it's where the part is. Okay? Over X. Okay, there's nothing. Actually, there probably is. Sorry, I'm talking to myself. I usually simplify this fraction, so I'm going to cut the zeros off, and I say, hey, what times 6 equals 18? You multiply it by 3, right? So if I multiply 10 by 3, I get 30. So now I know there's 30 kids in this class, and that 18 of them are girls, but I want to know how many boys. So I take all the kids in the class, I subtract my girls, and then I know how many boys are in the class, which should have been 12 boys. Okay, number 10. You took a test and got a score of 75%. You got 30 questions correct. How many questions were on the test? Once again, this is another part over whole equals percent over 100. What's the percent? 75. Plug it in. Always over 100. You got 30 questions correct. Is that all the questions on the test? No, that's just the ones you got correct. So the part's 30. We don't know this piece. In fact, that's what we're looking for. What should we always do with this fraction over here? We can simplify it. I like to think of quarters. How many quarters are in 75 cents? 3. How many quarters are in $1? 4. 3/4. Much easier to work with. In fact, what times 3 is 30? You times it by 10, right? So you do the same thing to the bottom. 4 times 10 is 40. You found out there were 40 questions on that test. Okay? The last two, we can use the formula is over of equals percent over 100. Okay, it gave us the percent here, 25 of 100. Okay, 25% of what number is 15? Okay, I see the word of. Sorry, 25% of what number? So the of we don't know. Of what number is 15? 15's on the top. All right. So once again, we can simplify this fraction to make it easier. Think of quarters. 25 cents is 1 quarter A dollar is 4 quarters. How do I get from 1 to 15? Well, I times by 15. If I go 4 times 15, I get 60. 60 is our number. So let's see if that makes sense. 25% of 60 is 15. Yeah, 25%, that's only a fourth of 60. If you cut this in half and half again, you get 15. Okay, next one. What is 75% of 80? Is over of equals percent over 100. The percent they gave us was 75. I see the word of 80, so 80 is at the bottom. We're trying to figure out this top number right here. Once again, reduce this fraction. 75 cents is like 3 quarters, a dollar is like 4. How do I get from 4 to 80? I times by 20, so I do the same thing to the top. 3 times 20 is 60. Let's see if that makes sense. 75% of 80, so almost all of 80, but not quite, would be 60. Okay, thanks for making those changes. You can retake the test so you can get a new score. Have a fabulous day.